Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is May 16, 2023. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Ella Ray Kondrat. Thank you so much, Ella. Where are you calling in from?
Thank you. I'm calling in I'm in New Paltz, New York right now.
First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is peace, love. Then it comes peace, love, understanding. But I think, having your basic needs met so that you can reach your full potential.
Beautiful. I agree. What's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
My favorite, well, I read a lot, but that's a different form of information. I mean, I think I feel energy, and so but feeling energy, I mean, it's kind of like you feeling energy can feel really bad or it can feel really good, but
Yeah.
so
Well,
it's yeah.
when I say information can be both bad and good, but
Yeah.
that's I you know, I know you were a reader and always been a reader. Just a side question is, did you become a reader because your parents told you to read? They did it as an example or on your own?
That's a good question. I remember being a little kid. I remember I didn't like reading for some reason, and I got into the American Girls Dolls books, and that was how I got into reading. But then I ended up reading everything. So I think it was kind of a way, yeah, I think it was a way of, you know, getting information and just absorbing myself into something.
Yeah. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Um, I guess from an evolution, there's an evolutionary standpoint where I think we had to, or adaptive, it's an adaptive mechanism, um, which I think explains um, why we have the fight and flight and everything. So we take information and um, use it to survive, but then hopefully that becomes thriving ultimately. So
Thriving is a great word, Ella. I love that. We hope it becomes thriving, but you sort of implied it. But do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate in humans or more invented by humans?
I don't think it was invented by humans. I think that, well, because I think other species collect information too, in maybe not integrating it or organizing it in the same way, but so I don't think it was invented by humans. Was that your question? What was
Yeah,
the
no, you answered it. Yeah.
Okay.
Do do thoughts create emotions?
Um, yes, I would say yes.
Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until
I don't know what I think until I pause, and sometimes writing. I think sometimes I need to write in order to understand, put everything into order.
I like both of those pauses. Like, I appreciate that you take a breath before you answer every question. You like relax for a second. There's no rush here. We're just having fun and you're like, there's no pressure. And I think people feel pressure sometimes because I ask a question and it's like, well, you're supposed to answer it.
Yeah,
No,
he's put on the
like
spot.
George Carlin's daughter, Kelly, she would crack up and laugh. Then she'd take a big yoga breath and then she would answer. So, I just want you to know it's all this period where you just think or quiet is fine.
Okay.
And it's funny because I don't know what I think until I write it, is what Joan Didion said. I don't know what I think until I say it, is what McLuhan said. So it's endless what people say. But
Yeah.
can humans think without language?
Well, as a speech language pathologist, some people, I mean, I think people have language, but I work with some people whose language is very impaired. They had a stroke maybe, and they suddenly, they still have language, but it's in a new way. So, and I think they do think because people still have something to say, even if they can't find the words for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because Chomsky says a language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. When language breaks down, what do you do? When language doesn't work, what do you do?
The first thing I do is I try to read people's body language
Yeah.
and see if they can use gestures, but also, you know, maybe, I mean, yeah, if there's really no language, you can't really ask even a simple question, but sometimes you can just get down to a really simple yes no question. But I'm thinking more in terms of that, terms of when I'm just working with somebody. But yeah, it can be extremely frustrating if
Yeah.
someone really can't express themselves.
Yeah. It's funny because that question applies to your profession. And I ask this
Yeah.
question 4 times a week for 40 years. And it's funny. I'll tell you one of my favorite answers ever was, "What do you do when language breaks down?" The guy goes, "Group hug."
Yeah.
I love that answer, group hug.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, I think nonverbal communication.
Yeah. Um, your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
Um, I think we're more well, I think what defines us is more our thinking, but I do think that, that feeling we're very motivated by feeling. So I don't know. I guess if I'm gonna define us by something, it would be thinking.
Yeah. It's really good, Ella, because this is how 80% of people answer. I think we're more feeling beings. They literally say, I think we're more feeling. And I love Bridget Bardot said, when I make love, I don't think. And I go like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off completely? You're doing the most sensuous thing your body can do. And you're just like, okay, I'm not going to think now. It's like people who meditate. They go like, I'm going to meditate about, I'm going to think about not thinking, you know,
Yeah.
high aspirations. Well, these are 2 questions from Alan Turing, 1950s. Is thinking a function of the soul?
Um, I think yes. I mean, I'm yeah, I still don't exactly know what the soul even is, but
Yeah.
I would say yes.
The second Turing question is, can machines think?
Well, now it's really interesting because now we have GPT, and reading about that, it seems like what they're doing really is just an algorithm, and they're just predicting what the next letter is gonna be
Yeah.
and getting better and better at predicting, but I don't think that's thinking.
Yeah.
So I would say no, for the time being, thankfully.
Yeah. You'll love this. My friend said the other day, type in Google. I mean, ChatGPT is really sophisticated Google, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, yeah.
He said, type in Google and put your name and say, how much are you worth? Like, how much is Ella Kondrat worth? How much is Jerry Fielka worth? And I did myself, and it said, an amount of money. And then it basically printed my Wikipedia entry. So then I did your aunt, my wife, Susie Williams. I
Yeah.
says, what is Susie Williams worth? And it said $5 million. And it said she is one of the greatest songwriters on the face of the earth. And then it went down and said,
Really? On Google it said that?
yeah, it said
That's
something like
accurate.
that. Yeah, and then it said, it is accurate. And then it said she is currently single.
Wow.
And then a little farther down, it had her Wikipedia entry and said she was married to me. And I was like, well, which is it? How far you read down,
That's a sign you're not thinking if you're and humans can do that too, but
Yeah.
if you're contradicting yourself that hard,
Yeah.
it's funny.
Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
I think I have pursued meaning and but I want to be pursuing happiness more.
Well, Ella, I got the question from Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, the book. He basically says meaning tends to last, happiness doesn't necessarily last.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
Um, hmm. Are we detecting or creating it? I personally think that there is consciousness. There's some river of consciousness that's going through everything and
Yeah.
or not consciousness, but some kind of some level of maybe not self-consciousness, but I think with humans it's kind of folded in on itself and it's become self-consciousness.
Yeah.
So I think we're detecting the consciousness. That's what I think.
Yeah. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Probably for me, light.
um, the poet Audre Lorde said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. And Yvonne Rainer, her colleague, said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
New tool, like a tool that doesn't exist.
Well, again, you put it into the context you want. It doesn't,
Okay.
it doesn't even have to be a tool, a new tool. It's like, what tool do you gravitate toward? If you want to
I
exist,
think
that's
that
fine too.
I gravitate towards music and I gravitate towards writing is really what I
Yeah. Yeah.
gravitate towards. So yeah, and I think and I am trying to heal the world a little bit and dismantle oppression through those media. So
That's good. Dismantle oppression. I'm fully aware how some of your elders have affected you, and David P. Williams, your grandpa,
yeah.
would be proud of you to dismantle the oppression.
Yeah.
For a great Freudian Marxist who really affected us. Ella, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I've been sleeping well, thankfully, but for a while I was really well, I got really obsessed with I've gotten really obsessed with transportation equity and like things happening in my city in my area having to do with that. So that's kind of what I have been stewing about for.
What is transportation equity?
It's basically like, like right now everything is car first, in all the planning and the entire economy. um it's all made for cars and people are dying. We've had like four recent cycles deaths in just a little city of Kingston near where I live. And
You mean cars hit bicyclists?
yeah, it's all been cars
Oh,
hitting bicyclists.
God.
And it's terrible. So and there's just not enough being done. So I've been this is how I deal with things, like obsessively reading about it and thinking about it as I, while I'm in bed or and writing a blog about it too.
Yeah, that's good because I know this statistic. I guess say the normal American working person spends a third or some huge amount of their work time making the money just to get to work.
That is
That this big chunk of money that they're earning
yeah,
just pays for them to get in their car and car insurance and all that. And it's like there's something wrong with that picture.
yeah, there's yeah, and whoever has figured out how to escape that is smart.
Yep. So Marshall McLuhan learned from the poet Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might be able to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So, Ella, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Well, I don't know if we ignore I don't think we ignore it. Well, a lot of people do. I would say I don't think I ignore it, but I think people feel powerless, or they
Yeah.
feel mired in debt, or they feel, they don't feel like they have another option.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to get into politics a little more, but it reminded me, so I don't forget, is there's this other sort of statistic, who knows if it's true, but that all the revolutions are started by rich kids because they have the time to read how they're oppressed. Then they go tell the working class, you're oppressed, and they're like, we're too busy working. you know?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm going through right now. I mean, I'm not rich, but I guess I'm relatively, I don't have kids. I work part-time right now, so I am basically that rich person, um, being like, and that's why I'm like, I gotta do something with my rich
Yeah.
person energy.
Yeah. Do artists have moral obligation?
Yes, um, definitely.
Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I would say, I mean, I think there's resistance to new ideas and new things, but that sometimes that resistance is just resistance to the new. So, I'm not afraid. I guess I tend to be more afraid of new ideas personally, and I think a lot of people are.
Yeah. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Um, I think I remember being in Park Slope, and I remember a few memories. I actually remember being at Susie's house, and oh, yeah, I remember one time, when I was probably, like, 1 or 2 years old, and we were at our apartment in, Brooklyn on First Street, and Susie, I think, was babysitting me. I'm just kind of extrapolating because I assume this must have been what it was. And there was a baseball cap on the floor. And I remember I was watching, and the baseball cap started moving, and um, and then Susie lifted up the baseball cap, and there was a giant, like, I guess it was a giant roach, giant water bug or something under the baseball cap, and Susie just screamed so.
That's
And that's a pretty early memory.
that's a very good explanation. I felt I was there. Is Ella, is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Um, this kinda goes back to, like, my other group of people I work with which is dementia people, which I think it is a blessing because memory is not just memory of something that happened, it's memory of how to do
Yeah.
things and how to live, and, we need that.
Yes, that is a good point. How to do. So, can you tell me someone within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, just briefly, who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model, and what specifically was that impact?
Um, someone in my immediate family,
Yep.
I would say my mom. I mean, I think both my parents, but my mom comes first to mind, and, I think that my mom what I really remember about my mom is that she would dance, and she still does this actually, but, she would dance, for an hour every day. This was, like, her practice, and I think she was going through a lot of very tumultuous things, and she was having to work really hard at work and have 3 kids and everything, and, I think that she just the act of, like, getting up and being practicing being powerful was very, influential to me. Not that I necessarily do that like she like she does, but I think, just kind of modeling, getting back on the horse kinda thing,
Yeah, it's
or getting
beautiful.
yeah.
It's beautiful because I mean, Susie said, "Let's dance today," and it really is, that nudge from Jenny to dance a little every day. And there's a
Yeah.
great cliche. There's a great cliche that goes, if you can't say it, sing it. And if you can't sing it, dance it.
Mhm.
So it is an amazing exercise. And then outside your immediate family, same question.
Someone who's had a big influence on me. I'm trying to think. Susie has had a huge influence on me.
What do you think you mainly got from Susie?
I think I got kind of the art, like kind of like living your life as art, and also just like, yeah, the way she's kind of like embodies her expression. And also I think just like the writing the song every day, even though I'm not doing that right now, I think that that kind of a practice is really has been inspired me in the past and future, probably too.
Beautiful. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
We went to Unitarian Universalist church when I was younger, but it was not really a religion. It was more like a group of people.
Community, yeah.
It was a
Do
community, yeah.
do you pray, Ella?
Yes.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Um, I would like to just kind of feel like a welcomed embrace and just like you're home and we love you and everything's good now.
You would be amazed how many people say, "Welcome home."
Mm,
A lot of people say that.
it's amazing.
No, this guy who was one of Susie's male groupies when she was a rock star,
Yeah.
his answer was, we checked the records and, we made a mistake, you're going back."
It's good.
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
That's a great question. And I think I more agree with evil evil using people as a vehicle. But I do think that there are some like I just, like for example, like I think Donald Trump is being used just as much as he is being a terrible person.
Yeah.
He's a conduit for a lot of bad things to happen.
Yeah. Well, the question really is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question, Ella, is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I feel like my first thought is that it depends on I mean, empowering can be good or bad. I mean, an enemy can be a very good intentioned person or very kind person, or it can be someone who's really, really destructive.
Yeah.
So I think if my enemy is someone who, like, I think there's just certain people who I'm just like, I'm going to stay away from that person because they are going to create problems and they're hurting me, they're hurting people. But then there's some people who I think if I acknowledge and really like if I think about, someone I'm arguing with who I love and if I acknowledge that person in a deep way, that can actually flip everything around
Yeah.
and yeah.
Well, Nassim Taleb said, games were created to give non heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. And then someone responded to that and said, villains don't think they're bad, they want control.
Mm,
Heroes want freedom. And
mm.
Gregory Bates, an anthropologist, said if a criminal gets caught, does he go, oh, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, wow, I did something morally and socially wrong? Thoughts, but does punishment work?
I don't think that punishment works as well as more positive generative things, but punishment can work. Like I think shame can work to control people, but it's always going to diminish people. So I don't think shame, like if you're trying to influence people or a group of people, in the long run, shame is not really going to be the way you want to go. I think it's, um, or punishing people. But there's a difference between protecting people from being hurt and punishing them. So I think there's like you can have boundaries with people, and that's not about punishing them.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
but
that's
yeah,
good. And American Indians, indigenous say your enemy's your best teacher. But again, it's like sussing it out. How you divided the two is an interesting way to look at it. We have to be aware of.
yeah,
James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism." Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play? No, why do we go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
that's a great question. I think we do create, I mean, like, kind of going back to the thinking, I think we're creating representations of life all the time by thinking. But
Yeah.
I also think, but more culturally, I think it's also people are tired, and they also don't think they have low self-esteem about being able to create something, so they don't bother creating and going out and living. They just want to consume.
Yeah. They just want to watch it on TV. In fact, your sister Hannah, we were taking care of her one year, and she was sitting in front of the TV watching something, and it was stupid. And I went, "Why are you watching this?" And she said, "Because nothing else is on." Now, to see, that is such a great thing in my studies of McLuhan, because what she was doing is like, "Hey, I'm just vegging out, sitting on the couch and relaxing. It doesn't matter what's on the TV. That's just flickering over there." So it wasn't like, it sounds bad, but this is what being aware of how we're consuming it, going to a play or writing a song.
Mhm.
So just going into that, before we go into music, what was the tipping point? So it'll be, what is the tipping point when you decided, I want to pursue music, I want to play an instrument, write a song, and sing? But before you do that, let's just go briefly into your career as a speech language pathologist. What was the tipping point that kicked you over to pursue that?
The tipping point was, well, I think, I felt like I wanted to serve people, and I had this idea, like, I wanted to, like, mature as a person and be more I felt like I wasn't useful. And then I was looking for jobs, and I was like, wow, I have no marketable skills. So I was like, okay, maybe I should go back to school. And then it just kind of turned, I'm good at being in school, and I like studying things. So it just kind of my mom encouraged me to do it. Um, so it just
But
kind of headed in that direction. And I
what
needed
did you study in college? Did you study literature in college?
I was a philosophy major.
Oh,
Yeah, but I
philosophy.
don't remember anything from it.
Oh, but don't worry about that. But when you were studying philosophy, did you think, wow, I will pursue? Were you thinking, how were you going to make money as a philosopher, being a
God, no.
teacher?
No, I think there was some kind of feeling that, like, it would just all happen,
Right,
something would happen, and
right.
I didn't know. I wasn't thinking beyond. I
Yeah,
wasn't thinking about the future very much. Yeah.
yeah. So then you grew up with your mom dancing, your aunt singing, but
Yeah.
where's the tipping point in your pursuit as a musician, singer, songwriter, playing guitar, where it kicked over and says, I can do this, you know?
I think it was, well, I took piano lessons as a kid, and then I took, like, one guitar lesson in high school, and I had a guitar, but I didn't really play it that much. And then there was a talent show at my high school in New York City, and, this guy asked me to do the lights. So basically, it was just turning on and off a light switch, like, it was very easy. and I was there, and his band came on, and they did a cover of, the Cars song, "Just What I Needed,"
Yeah.
and they did that, and I was like, "Oh my god, I wanna do that," and after that, I started playing guitar, like, I started really playing guitar.
That is such a great way. I got to interrupt. Steve Vai, who's like regarded as one of the greatest guitarists in the world, he asked me to do his lights after he left playing with Zappa.
Oh,
So
really?
it was cheesy little bars in LA, and it was like one light switch. You just flicked it.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's a great like tipping point description. you
Yeah,
know, just what I needed. Yeah, a rock band to inspire me. I can do that.
I can do that, yeah.
That is good. But then that where did you go? Well, I can write songs. Did
I
you do that right away, or did you just go, I can play guitar?
I think I was playing guitar and I was learning, like, Bob Dylan songs and stuff, and, I think my friend Becca, I went to college, so that was, like, at the end of high school that that experience happened, and then I went to college, and then I had a couple friends who were just, I got in a singing group where we were learning actually we're Vita songs, we're learning songs from Vita and
Right.
other a cappella groups, and then we started it was just we had the time and we had the inclination to just start improvising, so I was literally just sitting around with me and my friends and just, like, making shit up and or walking around, we sang a song about the moon and, we would just kind of, um, have, be aimlessly hanging out and getting stoned and then, coming up with songs, and that just kind of just went that way.
But now eventually you became a Ella songwriter. You don't like so much co-write, you write your songs and performing. You're basically a one act, or you have other people with you, but
Yeah,
you can do a performance where it's Ella singing her original songs. So
yeah.
in that regard, a screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play when you're writing an Ella song? In your creative process, what role does intention play?
Um, I think that there's an aspect of kinda channeling, so not having an intention not, like, just kind of having whatever is channeled, but I also think, I think there's I think I'm more, like, pointing myself in a direction, like, I think I'm gonna write about this breakup or this, whatever, wanting to, like, die. Not that I actually ever wanted to die, but, whatever feeling, I'm gonna write about this, and that is the intention, more or less.
Right. Right, that's good. And then Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your listener when you're writing your song?
I think sometimes I write for people because I want not anyone in particular, but I think I'm writing I have some music where I'm writing where I'm I think I'm gonna be or people are gonna be healed, people are gonna be healed by the song. So that is in my mind at times.
Yeah, I like the word heal because that's what I always say, that music's a healing force. What is the function of music?
Well, yeah, I think it's a healing force, and I think it helps to integrate, the body and the mind and spirit. Um, it just Yeah, I think it kind of gets us into it gets us out of whatever weird rhythm or non-rhythm that we're in and puts us into a rhythm, which is
Yeah,
good, I think.
that's good. Yeah, Norman Zamchek, Storm and Norman says, "What's the function of music?" He says, "To keep us from going insane."
Yeah.
But let's talk about, the Copeland says the four elements of music are melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. How do you integrate them when you're approaching a song? Maybe talk through your ritual when you're writing a song. Is there one of those that's more dominant? Melody, harmony, rhythm, or tone color? Is it?
Um, I melody, harmony, rhythm, or tone color. I usually start with a little snippet of something, which I guess everything does, but um I think my stuff is very melodic, but I think it's all connected, and I definitely um sometimes I have like I can hear the harmony, or like I have the idea for multiple parts at once kind of thing.
Yeah.
Can't always create that right away, but yeah, I don't know. It usually starts from a little thing, and then I add to it. I don't know. I don't know how to.
Well, a friend of mine has the three T's of music. He says taste, technique, and theory. So technique, you've learned how to play the guitar. Theory,
Yeah,
you know what chords.
yeah.
How does one acquire taste?
I think you have to listen to a lot of music, preferably at a young age, and I think you have to listen to different cultures. I don't think you can really have developed taste if you're only listening to your culture, although that's probably maybe or if you're white, I'll say if you're white, you have to explore a little bit more.
Well, you must have ESPL because the next question is the clue in line that goes, song is slow down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference. Any comment? And I can read it again if you want.
Sure, read it again.
Song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference.
I guess I could see that. I mean, I think about Latin music, and you can't it's not the same. If you put English words to like some kind of cumbia song or something, it's not going to have the same feel. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've studied the tuba throat singers,
Yeah.
and they're amazing. It's transcendental, the state they send me into, but they're basically singing about three things: their boots, their horses, and snow.
Yeah.
To me, it's like it takes me, or like how emotional Brazilian music can be to people who don't even speak the language.
Mhm.
What's more fundamental, language or music?
I think music, because music was here before language.
Yeah.
So,
Thelonious Monk says there are no wrong notes. Any comment?
yeah, I mean, theoretically, I think theoretically there's no wrong notes, but I think you can always slide into something and make it sound, but yeah, I I I don't always agree with that statement. But
Yeah.
jazz I'm not a jazz person as much.
Well, Miles Davis, another jazzer, he said, he spoke about the space between notes. And,
Mhm.
you're in a genre, let's say more towards folk music. Well, there is a lot of space. It's not like overplaying, like rock and roll is like bombastic in
Yeah.
so many ways. And so how do you integrate space between notes or silence?
I definitely do integrate silence. Like just yesterday I was having a rehearsal with my friend Sarah, who plays the violin, and I was kind of guiding her like, okay, this is where I want it to be silent, because I think that just adds it just adds another layer of dimension. And um I think we need silence. We need more silence in the world.
I agree. In fact, back to Thelonious Monk, he said, silence is the loudest sound in the universe.
Yeah.
Ruth Draper said, the key is to bring the audience up onto the stage and into the scene with you. It is they who must give you even more than you give them in the way of imagination and creative power. I've seen you captivate an audience. How do you do that? How do you bring the audience up onto the stage with you? It sounds really good what she says, but how do you accomplish that?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't think I always do that, but I think when I do, I think I'm actually vibrating at a certain frequency. I think I actually am, like, I think I learned how to do something with my voice where I can kind of go like, I can kind of I mean, I don't know, I probably can't do it right now, but I think I can get everything onto the same frequency somehow. I don't know
Yeah.
how that actually works, but when
Yeah,
you
you
have
don't.
everyone vibrating on the same frequency, then they feel captivated.
Yeah, that's very good. It's like Frank Zappa said, music is like air molecule sculptures. So it's like capturing some, and he realized that because when he was in church, when the choir was singing, their voice, their breath would make the candles move.
Mhm.
He realized this is like air being moved.
Mhm. Yeah.
And Leonard Cohen says the only way you can sell a concert is to put yourself at risk. And if you don't do that, people know. What role does risk play in your creative process?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, there's definitely always a risk. Every time you book a gig, there's a risk that no one's gonna come. But I also think, for me, I think, because when I write songs, I'm writing about whatever I'm going through. So sometimes, and like a few years ago, I was going through a lot of like heavy, personal things, and it was very, very vulnerable. It felt very vulnerable, and I actually kind of stopped. I was recording, and then I kind of stopped recording because I was like, I can't. Um, this is too vulnerable for me right now. Um,
Yeah,
but um, but of course, that's how you have to kind of be vulnerable in order to get good stuff.
that's it. That is such a key word for me. What does that mean? But what does courage mean to you now?
Courage means, I think, just I think you're being realistic about the opposite, or you're being realistic about the consequences that you could face or that you might face, and you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, it's good, Ella. I like that. Realistic. Because Viola Spolid was check her out. She's amazing. She was a social worker in Chicago. and she did role playing and basically started comedy improv. She didn't really say, I'm going to start this new movement in comedy. It just sort of morphed from, this philosopher Martin Buber, Thou and I, and her, then Second City, The Groundlings, Saturday Night Live. They all spawned out of Viola Spolin. And she says, if the audience cannot see your struggle to achieve something, they cannot root for you to achieve it.
That's good. I want to write
So
that.
what role does struggle play in your creative process?
It's a struggle. Well, I think a lot of it is a struggle because I think there's a struggle. There can be a struggle to just start and sit down and begin to do things. And then there's also a struggle. Well, I think perfectionism can be a struggle. Um, so, it's been a process. I've definitely gotten like more like, okay, just like it just has to be done. So it's not gonna be perfect, and that's fine. Um, but I think, yeah, like you said, I think people want to see your real emotions, and they want to see, um if you're sad, they don't want you to hide that. Sometimes we're taught that people don't want to see you sad, but I think when you're performing, you have to let that out.
Let it out. Two things. One is John Lee Hooker was asked, why do you wear sunglasses on stage? And he said, because I don't want people to know I'm crying. And that's a heavy thing because his music really is joyous, and people sort of misinterpret always the blues as being this downer music. But
Yeah.
Susie, when she performs and flubs the lyrics, she slaps herself. And I was like, they don't know you made a mistake. Just keep singing. But that endears people to her.
Yeah.
Like Carol Lip or Carol, whatever her name is, Mermaid. She says Susie cuts her chest open and hands you her heart.
Yeah.
So that's what endears people to Susie. They I paid to see a professional singer, and she made a flub, and she's admitting she flubbed. So Ben Radliff says, I mean sound as his long function among jazz players, as a mystical term of art in which every musician finally needs a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that it can be heard at best in a single note. So me and you can hear Joni Mitchell and we go, that's Joni. We don't need a whole song. We could tell in a couple of notes.
Yeah.
So he summarized this in 2 words. He would say, like, Miles is fragile and pointed. Coltrane is slightly undercooked and urgent. If a music writer was writing about Ella's sound and they used a couple words, what 2 words would you go, they got me. They understand what I'm about?
Well, I think when people have called me haunting, I think that can be accurate. And
That's a good one.
um I can't think of another word right now. Um like that would really nail me. I probably have. Um
Get back to me, or as we're
yeah,
talking, or
yeah.
put it in the comments section or whatever. But
Okay.
that haunting is good. But I'm curious, how did you get Mazzy Star to be, say you're a cross between Mazzy Star? I was amazed that you used her. Was she someone you heard growing up, or did someone say, hey, you sound like Mazzy Star?
Someone
And
said that. Yeah, my friend was helping me write my bio, and
yeah.
she was like, "You sound like Mazzy's. You should say you sound like Mazzy Star." And I'm like, "Okay."
I know. I thought that was
I
good
don't
because
know what
she
they
does.
sound like. Yeah.
I remember seeing her because she was in LA. They were LA, and
Yeah.
it's sort of like now YouTube. Whatever happened to Mazzy Star?
Yeah.
So then just go on to other things like politics and other things. But before, do you have rituals in writing your songs? Like you write the words first, or is there any sort of way, mood, ritual that helps you write a song?
I think two things. I think I have basically two different ways of writing a song. One is just I'm walking around and I get a melody and then I then I record the melody so I don't forget it because I always forget it. Um, and then that turns into a song. Or I'm messing around on the guitar and um and that just be and I become, oh, okay, maybe I could do that, maybe I could do that. Or I'm messing around on a couple years ago I was starting to mess around with a loop player and just creating loops on layering that. So so that's basically like I think lately I have not been in a mindset where ideas are coming to me, but sometimes I'm just in an in a mindset where like I'm getting a, a flow of ideas that are coming often. So
Right. You use that word channeling, which leads us into this next question perfectly, or the second. Mallarmé is a symbolist poet, and he said, "Don't paint the thing itself, paint the effect it produces." And so that's what the symbolist did. And Louis Bersani did a study on Mallarmé, and he said, "The very crises which threatens the writing of poetry sustains poetic composition." And there's a couple radical words there like crises and threatens. But
yeah.
is there anything in that you can explain to me? Because I'm always trying to learn what that means. The very crises which threatens the writing of poetry sustains poetic composition.
Yeah. I think that I can definitely relate to that. I mean, I think it's well, poetry is maybe a little different because I feel like a poem you can write in one sitting. So it's not an ongoing project, but I think, just the functioning, everyday functioning, um like I just think about like really just being a mentally unstable person, which I have been in my life at times. And like how it's hard to actually get anything done when if you're really mentally um unstable. But at the same time, you need that being off kilter. Like the off kilter gives you your creative inspiration.
Yeah. What was the motive of the cave artist? And it's funny because we don't have cave dance or cave music documented, but they were
Yeah.
doing that too. So basically, what do you think? Just your hunch or guess was the motive of the first artist?
I guess they were depicting what they saw, but it is interesting that they didn't really. I mean, it seems like it's mostly like animals that they're depicting. So I don't know. I mean, I think it might just be like um might have been a source of communication.
Yeah.
Or it might I maybe it was probably used in ceremonies to evoke you know, more animals, finding more animals to eat and stuff.
Yeah. Because a lot of times people say storytelling, and I say, Howells Frampton, this experimental filmmaker, said narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Can you forget to die?
You can forget that you're going to die. I mean, you probably can't. I don't think dying is really is I think dying is separate from forgetting, but um yeah.
Yeah. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Compromise.
Wow, Ella, there's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but that one you got right. Yay. I'm not kidding you. Everybody says conviction. It's like, duh.
Really?
Oh yeah, they did. Everyone's like conviction. I said, come on. I mean,
Oh,
I,
man.
I mean, it's just I ask these questions because I want people to answer how I feel. But if they don't, that just gives me a bigger picture on humanity.
But I feel like the way I have ideas, like, I think I'm always trying to search for ways. I'm always trying to challenge my ideas a little bit, I think,
Yeah,
especially, like, political, like, what should we do? Like, what should we
yeah,
actually be doing politically? Things like that. Um, I think convictions, you really get stuck. You
yeah.
don't get in a good place when you're convicted, because because in order to become an expert, you have to go through all these stages of having one idea and then realizing, oh, that wasn't a good idea. Then you have another idea. Then you have to
That's
be, yeah.
that's Louis Buñuel. I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. I found
Mhm.
the truth. I know
Yeah,
the right way. And then you
yeah,
go, well, no, tomorrow it's going to change.
yeah.
But I'm
That's
glad
right.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, but I really appreciated that, what you said, because it is being able to morph and, just to get into politics for a second here, Utah Phillips. Have you ever listened to him? He's a political
A little
folks, and he's the only, Annie DeFranco produced two acts on her label: Maceo Parker, James Brown saxophonist, and Utah Phillips. And it was like, whoa, that is like someone I can respect. So Utah Phillips, he's a labor activist and a folk singer.
bit.
And he said, anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
Mm. That's cool. I'd never heard that one. Who is entitled to make the rules? I basically agree with that. Like, I think especially in the past, for me personally, the idea of boundaries has, and I think for a lot of people actually in the past, like 5, 10 years, this whole idea of having boundaries where um you're not making rules for the other person. You're making rules for yourself and your own space, but you're not infringing on the other person until they come into your space.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah. So I mean, I think that's the only way you can be nonviolent, um, and still protect yourself.
What's the difference between rights and responsibilities?
I think they go together. I don't think you can have rights without responsibilities. The difference is that, well, basically, I don't think there's any inherent right. Like, I don't think the earth is set up to have rights, but it's something that we can decide to create. So we create it together, and we all decide, okay, like, we're all going to have the right to free speech, and so we're collectively going to protect anyone everyone's right to free speech. But that's a responsibility. um the right isn't going to be protected if we don't take the responsibility to protect it.
Yeah. It's like with the cops having cameras on them. I'm like, wait a minute. That seems a little backwards, because you want people, well, like Lenny Bruce said, you can call cops three things: cops, pigs, or peace officers. Why don't you just call them peace officers? You become what you behold. And so you want cops to treat other people humanely because that's the humane thing to do. You don't want them to treat people humanely because they know there's a camera on them. They can just tilt the
Right.
camera a different way or say, oh, it didn't work that day. And so
Yeah.
you think that's going to make them? No, we want to raise, actually David P. Williams taught me in Cuba, when you go into a waiting room, there's nobody's taking a number. Everybody sees who was next in line, and
Wow.
they're gracious about respecting that. Americans and me, I admit, I cut in line, oh, there's a hole, I can cut in and get faster,
Yeah.
It's like, so what's the difference between rebellion and revolution?
I don't really believe in just in having a revolution that's I mean, I don't know exactly what the actual difference is, but I think one it's kind of seems like rebellion is well, kind of resistance. I don't know. I think revolution is something that might need to happen slowly rather than quickly. But I don't know. I guess I'm thinking about like a situation where you're overthrowing people, but you're not over, but you haven't done the inner work to actually change the way that you behave, and therefore you end up creating
Yeah.
the same patterns.
Yeah, like rebellion, there's something wrong. Revolution is there's something wrong. And here's a new plan or a new strategy because it said re-evolution. It's like you
Yeah.
have, in fact, John Basil Barnhill is a socialist. He said, where the people fear the government, you have tyranny. Where the government fears the people, you have liberty. In 2005, V for Vendetta, the movie paraphrased it. People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
Mm.
How do you personally handle false fears like the war on drugs? You can't have a war on drugs because drugs can't fight, and you can't say no to drugs because drugs don't talk.
Yeah.
So they create these false fears like the war on drugs, the
Yeah.
war on poverty, the war on terrorism. How do you personally handle false fears?
I think finding out more information and finding out what's really true and doing research and talking to people and because I think once you have information, I think the more information you have, the more you can first of all know what the threat is, if the threat is really what they're saying it is, or maybe the threat is actually totally like in the war on drugs, the threat was actually basically the people who were waging the war on drugs more than anything.
Yeah.
And then you can also figure out what you're going to do if you need to deal with a bad situation.
Yeah. Frank Zappa said, we should have a war on helplessness. That's why people are taking drugs. They feel helpless.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
He also said a great line about drugs being anti-drug, though he was pro cigarettes and coffee. He said, "Don't do speed; it will turn you into your parents." Like, good luck. You don't have a choice. Everybody turns into their parents or the opposite of their parents, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you brought this thing up about cars, transportation equity earlier on, because there's a great film I highly recommend called Problema. It's 2010. It's on YouTube free. And they asked like
Oh.
20, 30 great thinkers, like 20 great political questions. And a couple of them I'm going to ask you now. I love this one. What if all Chinese people want a car?
Okay. What if? What if?
Yeah.
Um, it would be spatially impossible to do that. So, I mean, I think I'm sure they're trying to sell that to people, but it wouldn't work. It would be prohibitively expensive, and there'd be no place for the cars to park, and everyone would be sad.
How do we stop our governments from going to war?
I don't know because we haven't managed to actually do that. So, um, but I would just say, um, we probably need to focus on, well, I guess, the it kind of makes me think about the idea of just degrowth and consuming less because I feel like so many of our wars now are about, well, I guess wars have always been about resources, but lately they've been about oil, a lot of them. And so if we don't need oil, then what's the point of going to war? Or
Yeah.
if we're not pursuing profits, endlessly.
Yeah. Conflict resolution seems to be something we should be taught in school, like home ec, gym, all the other normal subjects in conflict resolution. And then someone said, "Oh, we teach that in schools now." Were you ever taught conflict resolution in school?
Um, I think I was maybe taught a little bit
Yeah.
in I I was a peer mentor and we might have done a little bit. I can't really remember, honestly. I don't think, I mean, whatever it was, I don't think it was enough.
Yeah. So, Ella, in your accomplishments, how do you rate these three elements: luck, skill, and ambition? What played the biggest role, second and third?
Probably in that order: luck, number 1, skill and ambition, number 3.
You know, the more you practice, the luckier you get. That's what a wise person said once.
Yeah, yeah.
T.S. Eliot said poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language? English, I would
But
say.
more metaphorically, what form is your inner consciousness in?
Um, my inner consciousness is, um, I mean, I guess it was a rambling stream of consciousness, or kind of, maybe it's a dialogue of, is that true? What should I do? Blah, 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 blah. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Is perception reality?
no.
Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
I think, well, whenever I have an idea for a song, I feel like that's kind of impossible because it's never gonna sound like it is in my head. But also I think, I've been thinking a lot about, like degrowth types of things and also, transportation equity related things, and a lot of those things seem impossible, but I think it's also just, um, I think that's gonna shift.
It's
So
good,
I think
Ella.
it's still worth thinking about.
Great. Actually, the New Yorker quoted Sun Ra, and he said, "The impossible attracts me because everything possible has been done and the world didn't change."
Yeah.
We can have hope by thinking that, like, if you don't have your dreams, dreams don't come true.
Yeah.
So, Ella, tell me one major element of your creative songwriting that's stayed the same and one major element that's changed over the years you've been doing it.
One element is just like improvising and sometimes not being able to play it the same way twice. Um, and just kind of having a flow with it. And because I think even like I remember just playing guitar as a kid and just kind of, I mean, playing piano as a kid and just kind of sitting there and just kind of improvising.
Right.
And one thing that has changed is I think my lyrics have gotten more deep and personal.
Very good. So Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
I think just being like kind of sensitive because that my sensitivity has been a strength in terms of music, but it's been a weakness in terms of functioning in everyday life potentially. And also just kind of the internal my tendency to kind of go inwards can be definitely um can be a weakness, but I think it is also just I'm very introspective and I think I understand things on a deeper level than some other people in the world.
Yeah, that's good. It's important because if other people can see that, like you sort of touched on this question, but I have to answer it now because the way you answer that is like two of my film heroes, their mantra is ignore yourself. There is no self-expression. And then Cecil Taylor says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. So
Mhm.
is art making more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technologies, environments, and cultures are dominant?
Self-expression, I don't I it's not like I try not to be um doing what's dominant, but I'm more interested in self-expression.
Can art making, music making be egoless?
That's a good question. I think it can be, but that you might have to kind of give up wanting it to sound good or the way you want it to sound.
Yeah, Paul Schrader, who wrote Taxi Driver, says the role of the artist is to attempt to sell out but fail. Which sounds real romantic. Like I'm so pure, I tried to sell out, but I failed. That must mean I'm an authentic artist,
Yeah.
I like Reverend Al. He goes, "Don't sell out, sneak in." McLuhan probed Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce, saying, artists dream awake. Not to sound elitist, everybody can dream awake, but it's like everybody has this power and ability to create these scenarios in the middle of the night that are, unbelievable, dreaming. But artists can actually dream while they're awake. Have dreams played a role in your creative process?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I can be kind of a dreamy person and yeah, I think kind of or things that come into my mind's eye can definitely influence songs.
What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
Um Well, I've been trying not to do that as much because I do think that way a lot, but I think sometimes because I'm, learning more about like transgender identities and things like that. But I would say women I don't know. I guess women, it's really hard to say because every time I try to say every time I start to say something, it's like I can think of an example where that's not true.
Well, no, it's all right, Ella, because I had to stop asking it. Once Me Too came in,
Yeah.
people would go, "Won't go there." They won't even answer it. And slowly, I start asking again, and people will say there is no difference. Physical is the thing that's different. But
Yeah.
what the follow up question is, what caused matriarchy?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a difference, and at the same time, there is a non-binary,
Yeah,
as well. But what caused matriarchy? I mean, I think it's like women, give birth and then are nursing children, and they women just have that connection to the children and want to protect them in a certain way, whereas I think um men, I guess if I'm going to say one thing, and this is not really totally true for men and women, but I think women are more protective of children, and men are more adventuring with children and
yeah,
putting them into harm's way. So I think maybe matriarchy is a way to protect people
yeah.
in culture more.
There's a line that goes, "You create what you resist." Bob Goldthwait morphed it into, "You are what you hate." James Joyce said, "It's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve." And Louis Buñuel said, "Thank God I'm an atheist." So, any thoughts on this line? You create what you resist. And I'm not saying you, Ella, create what you resist. Like one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that line?
Yeah, I definitely think that is true. Well, I and maybe not, I don't know if creating is the word, but persisting. I think,
Yeah.
if you're not wanting to deal with something, or if you're creating a static by by wanting to you're trying to change something that's creating an issue, it's creating suffering.
Yeah. That's the other way to word it. You got it. What you resist persists. That's how another way they say it. How do you find peace of mind, Ella?
I don't know. I think it's harder now because I'm an adult, so I always feel like I have something I should be doing.
Get over that fast, man. Just
Uh,
forget it. That's great. I'm an adult now. No, stay a child.
I
Stay,
know, I
stay
know,
that
trying
adorable Ella.
to.
You know, that Ella that Susie just loves. She loves you at all. In fact, you got to see Ella, Susie's new video. It's her performing with Zappa's keyboardist like 25 years ago, and we just put it on YouTube about 2 hours ago.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And she freaks out. It looks like Ella. It is totally Ella up there.
Oh my gosh, crazy.
Yeah, check it out. But
Alright.
a couple more and we're out of here, Ella. This has really been fun and I appreciate your time. So these are 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of
Yeah.
your head in just a couple words. Number 1, who started it all?
Jesus.
I'm glad you laughed. No, it was like, Jesus. You mean that's a you can take it. You,
This
you
is off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, that's good. Is it's like, do you mean Jesus the God or Jesus the TV series? That's what I you mean Brandy the drink or Brandy the pop star?
Yeah,
Okay,
or the
so
statue, yeah.
2 is, are we going to make it?
I think so.
Good. 3, where do we put it?
In the all throughout the universe.
Beautiful. Who's cleaning it up?
Vacuums.
5, is it serious?
No, I don't think it is ultimately serious.
Very good. What's the function of satire? Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own.
Hmm.
Can
Yeah, definitely. Hmm?
yeah, can satire be destructive?
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, because I think well, I notice this like sometimes I watch a movie and I was like, that was such a deep movie. And then I talked to whoever I was watching it with, and they're like, oh, I didn't get like I got all these messages from the movie that like my friend did not even get. So we do definitely read ourselves into films. Um, and so sometimes it's just enforcing what people already believe,
Yeah.
but
It
it can be
used
instructional. Yeah.
yeah, it used to be seeing is believing, and they switched it recently to believing is seeing. You see what you already believe, you know.
Yeah.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
I would say, I love you. You are strong and you're gonna make it through. You're gonna be okay.
That is beautiful. Ella, I know these interviews go well when either I tear up or they tear up, and that really touched me. I'll tell you who also said that. Lee Harvey Oswald's girlfriend. She wrote this
Oh,
book. It's
really?
not his wife. His girlfriend wrote this book, and it's a legitimate book. And I didn't ask her all about her book. I just asked her all these philosophical questions. I says, if you were walking down the street and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say? She goes, I love you. It's
Oh,
like that. What more could you say to yourself?
yeah,
That's I love you. That is an amazing.
yeah.
Which way should toilet paper come off the roll? Over or under?
I think over for
If
sure.
a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
If a publisher, you said?
If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
For some reason, I the talking heads say it once, why say it again?
Good. They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
Blue lavender.
If a statue is built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
I think I would take this as an opportunity to create a really cool public space. So I think it would be some kind of purple glass and it would be like but it would be like it would be in a park where people could sit and hang out.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And a tribute to your grandmother, Mims, Barbara Liggett,
Look at that.
she changed that question because usually I would just say, if a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed? And
Mm,
she described it as being a creek or a river flowing over pebbles. So it
mm,
made me say, well, what would it be made of? What is it? Not
mm.
just where.
Hmm, that's cool.
Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Something good I never had and I never want. Probably like a well, that's not good, but I would say a private jet.
Private jet. Couple more and we're out of here, Ella. Thank you. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
I think I see a cultural shift of people wanting to like reduce consumerism. I mean, I think that there has been a wave of that for a long time actually, but I think people are really starting to push back harder against consumerism and, the profits, sacrificing people for profit. And that is inspiring to me.
I agree. I hope that continues and takes over. So
Yeah.
Thornton Wilder said, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
What it's really all about for me is, I think, just love and, I think this probably goes back to like towards the beginning, but I think like I just want things to be simple, and I want everyone's needs to be met so we can all like be artists um, and explore our highest purpose in life.
Yeah. What gives you the most optimism?
Probably talking with people and listening to people who are really optimistic.
Yeah. It's fun, Ella. The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being? Wilhelm Reich says the best thing for a human being is another human being. And the last question is, what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people. So it's sure been fun spending this time with another person, especially because I'm related to you.
Yeah, no, it's been great.
You got to reveal it all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ella. I really
Thank
appreciate
you,
your time.
Gary. I appreciate you asking me to do this. This was really awesome.
Yeah, and even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope our discussion will never end and we can keep talking forever and ever.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, bye.
Bye.